And Dowd, you've had a number of noteworthy roles this year, like in Masters of Sex and in True Detective, but probably your biggest showcase was this past season in The Leftovers. You've been acting for a while, but has this been a unique year for you in terms of how many roles and the kinds of roles you've been getting?
Oh my gosh. So, yes, without question. Just wonderfully written, wonderfully directed. I mean, yes, very, very exciting year, I will say.
What has that schedule been like? Just just trying to move from one project to the next, and doing a regular role on a TV series must
Well,
have been kind of.
I'm very fortunate because, first of all, to shoot in New York, you can imagine it's the greatest. I have three children who need to be raised, which requires the presence of the parent. Um, so it was a thrill. And I can't tell you something about just traveling in the van every morning, 45 minutes out of the city, and after a while, not even asking where we're going, just hopping in and knowing we'll end up somewhere with my colleagues and we'll do a day's work. I think poor Justin had the lion's share, so much time. I was lucky to come in and go home and come, but I had a very moderate schedule compared to some. Some of them were heavier than others, of course, but it was a terrific experience, really wonderful. And the nice thing
On
about Masters of Sex is, somehow it worked. The timing of it worked. I don't know how, but I was never overly stressed. There may have been days where I thought, okay, a little break here, but by and large, terrific.
on The Leftovers, you played Patti Levin, a leader of the Guilty Remnant, which is kind of a religious cult that has taken a vow of silence following the sudden departure of 2% of the world's population. And a spoiler alert for anyone watching this video who hasn't maybe seen the entire first season of The Leftovers yet, but your character killed herself towards the end of the season. Did you know that was coming from the beginning?
No way. I don't think any of us knew what was going to happen from one day to the next, not because it was disorganized, but because it's a first season. So I got wind of it, I think, about 2 weeks before shooting it. I was crushed. I thought, no, because in the beginning, I had no clue who she was. She was a kind of peculiar, mysterious kind of girl who, whatever she went through, something about it we knew was not easy. She carried a tremendous amount of baggage, I think. And I had a sort of hint of that, but had no idea where she was going. And then got very attached to her. Right about the third time out, I thought, oh, she's very interesting to me, not talking and things. And I'm a big talker, so that was in itself challenging. Think, okay. Then you realize, well, talking is only one thing you do in a room, and it's not necessarily the most important. You know what I mean? Anyway, so when I got word that I was going to exit the planet, I was like, no. So yeah, I was fortunate to have those maybe 10 days to sort of sit with it, and then it was a beautiful episode. So I had that.
It's interesting.
And I love Tom and all of them. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting because after her death, we see her again in the flashback episode where we see sort of the build up to the sudden departure, and then in another scene that turns out to be a dream sequence that Justin Theroux's character is having. And this is the kind of mysterious show where you kind of have to ask, even though your character is dead, is there a chance we'll still see more of you in, future episodes next season, or do you think was this really the end of her?
Well, that's a great question, and of course I haven't a clue. Damon wrote to all of us. He's a wonderfully considerate, wildly talented man, and you really feel well cared for by him. And so when he says, I will let you know as soon as I know, you really believe him. I think they're putting it together now. I haven't a shred of an idea of what's going to happen. There's something very exciting about that, something unnerving about it. What that show taught me, not that you've asked, but it was brilliant in the sense that it taught me to let go of it. Because at first I thought, what? I'm leaving the show. What could you mean? She's dead? Really going to? And then over the next 3 weeks, which of course is what Patti does, she lets go of her existence on Earth, lets go of the past, the Michigas, all of it. So it was a tremendous experience. So when I left at the end of the season, there was a level of fulfillment and whatever happens will happen kind of thing, which is refreshing, may I say. Instead of wishing, wanting, hoping, just saying it will be what it will be. So.
I got a chance to talk to Justin Theroux a few days ago, and it's interesting you mentioned the idea of letting go, because he also talked about how he doesn't necessarily know what's happening to his character from one episode to the next, and that it's kind of a liberating feeling as an actor to sort of take it moment by moment instead of looking too far down the road. Did you sort of have that similar feeling?
Yes, not in the beginning. In the beginning, I thought, what are we doing here? But soon you meet Damon, and then you think, oh, what was I worried about? I really mean that, and I agree with Justin, whom I adore, may I say. If you're going to be on a set with somebody, grab hold of that man, because he's a rock of Gibraltar, full of talent, full of humor and kindness. Can't say enough about him. But yes, after a while you thought, okay, I don't know where we're going. Even the Guilty Remnant, this is a new religion, and so they're putting it together day by day. Do you know? So all of it, that's exactly what we were doing. And Damon would say, if you want to know, ask me. And so if there were things I wanted to know, insofar as he could tell me, you just have to ask, and then the email comes back and some explanation about something that might have been confusing, or what would the motive have been, or where's she going with that? He was there to answer that question, which I appreciated very much.
Now, for the most part during the season, as you talked about, your character was silent, because these characters have taken a vow of silence. What was that challenge like for you as an actor, trying to develop a character without spoken dialogue? Did it feel like you were trying to sort of access an entirely new bag of tricks in terms of portraying someone?
Well, the great thing about it is that you just said there are no bag of tricks. You better get your act together, girl. And you better know what it is you want from that person in the room with you, meaning the other actors. It was a tremendous learning experience. Don't walk onto that set if you don't know what you want as a character, because that's the only thing that's going to root you to the present moment is what do you want to do to that character in front of you, and what do you want? And you're not going to get it with words, so how are you going to get it? It takes the nonsense right out of it, and it's a little bit scary because you feel naked as can be. You just have that presence and that desire for something, and you just got to get clear on what it is. It was thrilling in that regard, and challenging, I will say.
On the flip side, though, was there any relief to be able to get to play so many scenes and not have to memorize any lines?
Well, no, I love to memorize lines. That's part of the deal, and I like that. The use of words to get what you want, and I think there used to be a day when you'd say, "Oh, I'm not talking in this scene," so oh, good. Well, hello, you still have work to do. What are you doing there? Do you know what I mean? It's great. It was a great acting teacher to have to figure those things out and know you're not going to use words to get through it. So, yeah, loved it.
Now, there are a couple of moments where Patti does break her silence, and it's kind of jarring to the audience when we actually hear her speak, just because we're not used to it. And there's that scene with Amy Brennaman in the diner, and
yeah.
Theroux after he kidnaps her. When you finally got the opportunity to give voice to the character, how did it feel to finally be able to do that? Did you feel like you got to know her better in those scenes, or?
Yeah, definitely. Well, that scene in the diner, I think it's episode 5. I realized something that I should have realized probably earlier, but it really clicked for me in 5 that she comes in and out of balance. It just gave me a grip on, oh, she's not quite okay. She can hold it together, but she's got some things to work out. And I didn't know what was going to happen in 9, you know, the flashback. We don't know. But then to get her history and realize, oh my God, she knew something was going to happen. And Amy Brennaman's character saying, listen, you're just anxious about the fact that you had a rotten husband who mistreated you, and you had a rotten past, and you weren't able to stick up for yourself and really, you know, become a strong human being. And she's saying, no, 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 something's going to happen. That profound level of anxiety, which we all know, those of us who've experienced, it's a ticket to hell. And then for her to be liberated, knowing, yes, I was right, which gives her that tremendous amount of strength and fortitude. The question was, did it help to know her when I spoke? Yes, 5 really tipped me off to, oh, I see. She's on a journey of herself, of letting go. And then getting to talk about it. That was heaven in 8, just before she kills herself. I thought it was beautifully written. And it reminded me of a play in the sense that I had 5 full days before I had to shoot it once the episode began. So I could, at home, rehearse it, work through it. My husband, who's an actor, also kept working through it with me. So it was a real pleasure, and it made tremendous sense to me. And when it didn't, Damon, write on the email, what does this mean? And he would respond despite all his responsibilities. He was so present. Anyway, I'm rambling, and I beg your pardon, but I hope I got somewhere near the answer to that question.
Yeah, you absolutely did. You know, and it's interesting to be able to play a character and to get, you know, in your very last, you know, episode where, you know, right before this character kills herself, to have that huge scene, which is sort of like a play, as you mentioned, because it is, you know, I think all of it is just that one location, and it's you and Justin Theroux, you know, through most of it. You know, what was that process of filming those scenes? How long did it take? How many takes? You know.
Well, it was a remarkable experience. So in the cabin, which I thought was the greatest thing, our production designer, remarkable set. It does so much. Just walk in that room and you realize, oh, okay. Here we were in the middle of the woods, and for some reason, whenever we began to film, it would rain and rain and rain, and you could hear it on the roof, you know. And conditions there were never easy. We're in the middle of Saxon woods, and it starts to rain, and the mud, you can imagine. I don't know how the crew, they're remarkable. I don't know how they did it. But I believe we shot that sequence over a 3-day period. And bits of it, you know, each day, parts of it. And we shot it in order, meaning once we got into the cabin, we shot in order. The director was marvelous, Michelle, phenomenal director. Of course, am I saying her last name? No. Why? Because I'm fatigued. I just got in from Puerto Rico yesterday, actually. So I'm trying to get my name straight and then other things straight. But the point being, you edit this, don't you? Do you edit this?
Yeah, I usually just let it go as is, but you know, don't worry about it. You're.
I'm so sorry. I'm starting to babble. But the point is, yeah. So it was dark and quiet and isolated, and we were exhausted. All the right ingredients to get the scene done. You know, I'll never forget that experience. It was thrilling and liberating. I was scared to death, but you know, what do? You put one foot in front of another. Justin is you know, he's there, he can hold it somehow. Appreciated that so much. Really felt like we were talking to each other, you know, which of course is the goal, isn't it? But sometimes it's just so hard to do. But I think that's what I remember. The whole thing was just, it was like a love scene in its way, you know, the level of intimacy. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, I want to rewind to a couple of years ago, because you know, we're an awards website, and you made such you know, such great waves a couple of years ago with the independent film Compliance. Where you got a lot of acclaim, and you actually ended up paying for your own screeners to send to award voters, which was a kind of an eye-opening moment when it comes to thinking about the real economics of awards campaigning and awards season. How did you go about making that decision that year?
Well, Adam Kirsch, who was a publicist that helped me, because I knew nothing about the process at all. And I said, so should we do that? And he said, well, let's see how things go. And then the National Board of Review happened. That was so lovely, that award. And he said, yeah, I think you should do it. And for whatever reason, the film company, Magnolia Pictures, didn't want to pay for, what do you call them again?
Screeners.
Screeners, sorry. Which is their choice. You know, I didn't pursue that. I didn't hang on to that. It was like, okay, well, that's a decision. And then to me, it was just a business decision, meaning, well, I didn't see this coming, but there's a chance something could happen here. I have very kind friends who loaned me the money. And I remember in an interview with NPR, I didn't see why it was caused a sort of thing. It wasn't that big a thing. People have other things in the world to think about, God knows. But I remember the interviewer said, well, how do you feel? Do you worry at all about Hollywood's response to your doing that? And I said, what do you mean? I wasn't sure what she meant. She said, you know, that here you are paying for your own. I said, oh, you know, publicity and getting that done. Do you feel they might think of that as, you know, putting yourself, I don't even know what the rest of the question was. And I said, oh, it's done all the time. It's just that the film company does it for the actor or whomever does it. Do you understand? So I said, this is just because this is a circumstance. It's not being done, so I'll do it. It's my career. It's my choice. I don't feel pressured in any way. It just made a lot of sense to me. So yeah, I'm not sure I answered that question either, but that was a thrilling time for sure. And it was harrowing too. You know, it's kind of nerve-wracking, may I say.
Yeah.
All of that, because you hopes and desires, but I had, you know, Scott Feinberg was such a good friend to me, helped me. Yeah.
It didn't seem like something to me. I mean, when I first heard about it, the idea of any kind of backlash didn't even seem possible to me. Just because, I mean, this was such a small film, and it was an underdog from the start. So the idea of putting your own money into sort of supporting the film and sort of getting people to, you know, I mean, you're not like saying, you know, love me, or you just want people to see it.
Exactly.
Well
put.
And so yeah, it didn't seem like you know, there was, you know, much to complain about in terms of the tactic. I mean, it just seemed like, you know, someone who was very proud of her work.
Well, the other thing can I say is, even though I would not have been able to say I'm proud of my work, which of course, but the gesture implies it, doesn't it? But here's the thing I want to say. You know, age is underrated. Aging is underrated, because had I been in my 20s or 30s, you know, I wouldn't have known where to put my focus. I would have been worried, does anyone think that, or should I have said that, or do they? And being older and having been at it for a while, you know, things settle down, perspective sort of steps in a little bit, do you know? So even though it was like crazy time, it was not the kind of thing. I just reminded myself, stick to the plan here, baby, and don't listen to this and that and the other. Just put your head down and get the work done, and that's it. And I thought the film was beautifully written by Craig Zobel and beautifully directed, and I wanted everyone to get a little of that, you know, to see the work of the actors too. You know, it was a wonderful experience. So, yeah.
Now, an Oscar nomination didn't come out of that, but you know, as you mentioned, you got the National Board of Review Award, and you were nominated by the Independent Spirit Awards and Critics' Choice, and you know all of that attention that you got and the acclaim that you got for that film. Do you think, you know, regardless, that was a major turning point for your career that has sort of led to a lot of the roles you've been getting, you know, over the last couple of years?
I think so. I really do. I think my good fortune in getting True Detective and Leftovers and Masters of Sex, you know, I think it did have to do with that. It just sort of brought I just had a little more, I don't know, what's the word? I was just seen a little more, you know what I mean, by more people. And so, yeah, I definitely do. And also, having gone through that, it gave me a sort of confidence about, okay, they're just people. We all are. We all want similar things to get wonderful work, to be given wonderful directors and writers, and then to be noticed, so a lot happened from compliance. I just finished a film with David Gordon Green, which is what we were filming, called Our Brand is Crisis, and it stars Sandy Bullock. We just wrapped Sunday. But David Gordon Green is the reason I got compliance, I think, because he and Craig are colleagues and friends, and I think David had gone to see a play I was in and then said to Craig, why don't you have her come in and audition? And the rest, I ended up getting it. So very grateful for that. And he's David Gordon Green. You know his work.
Yes.
Yeah, it's wonderful too. So lucky me, right?
Absolutely. I want to wish you the best of luck with that film, and congratulations on The Leftovers. Golden Globes are coming up. Fingers crossed. Emmys next year. Fingers crossed for those too.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations on everything, and thanks for talking to me again.
A pleasure, and thanks for talking to me, Daniel. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too.
Okay, buddy.